I'll begin another lecture today, and today we're going to be talking about the history of mandates in the United States of America. We're going to be covering case law. We're going to be going over the case law for each different mandated period. We're going to be going over the Volstead Act. So if anybody has some familiarity with the Volstead Act, we're going to be talking about the Volstead Act in a little bit of intricate detail tonight. We're going to be talking about. I'm going to be reading off of some notes I took earlier today. How's everybody doing today? Thank you guys for coming by. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate everybody who comes by and wants to educate themselves. Let's learn something today that we didn't know yesterday. Let's pick up something that we can take away from this lecture and that we can share with someone else so that they can better themselves, so that they can take a look at what the country is going through now and try to figure out, how you guys doing? Where's everybody from? Where's everybody from? How are you guys doing? Where is everybody watching from today? If you could please let me know where everybody's watching from today. I would like to know where everybody is at today. How's everybody doing? My name is chilledecastro. I am maybe the most educated dropout that you've ever met. I barely graduated from high school. I've graduated second to last in my class, and then I went to college primarily just to wrestle and compete. And after I blew my knee out, I didn't finish college. And then after I was no-knock raided by Chief of Police Michael Moore. Good to see you, LA. We got Missouri in the house. We have Vegas in the house. Good to see everybody. Thank you guys for coming by. If you'll do me a favor, please, and just reach up and tap that like button, if you would, please. Just reach up and tap that like button. I need to do a little bit more promoting. If you guys haven't been by deletelaws.com, please go by my website, Delete Laws, and that's with a Z, DELETELAWZ, deletelaws.com. Goodness, these glasses are filthy. I may have to take a break here and just wash these glasses because these are really dirty. Did that do any good? Oh, Lord. Sorry about that. So where's everybody at? So now I'm going to get right into the lecture tonight. I'm going to go right into it. We're just going to begin because what I realized reading back the comments, I can't read every comment anymore. There's just too many. Thank you guys for coming by. I do appreciate it. I can't read all of the comments anymore. I just can't keep up because now people are commenting on all of the videos and it's almost impossible to keep up with those comments. Thank you guys so much. I do appreciate you guys coming by. So now, if you guys don't know, what I teach specifically is the unedited version of the United States of America. That is the unedited version of the history of the United States of America. I did build and design this poster in the first quarter of 2021 with the help of my two-time Trump voting conservative Republican investor, Jeff Lloyd. Jeff Lloyd. And so I want to give a big shout out to my supporter, my investor, and my backbone that has supported me as I've been going down this mission. And that gentleman's name is Jeff Lloyd. You guys can find him on Instagram at JLloydSold, JLLOYDSOLD, J Lloyd Sold. If you guys want to hit him up on Instagram and thank him for giving us this opportunity to share in learning and learning new information together. Remember, Chicago's in the house. Good to see you. We are crowdsourced here. We are crowdsourced by a large group of people thinking together, and we are thinking together about how to make this country a better place. So I'm going to put my stick down here for a second, and I'm going to jump right into it. Does anybody want to pop links? Does anyone want to pop links up? I'm going to give you guys some links to pop up here. And so I want to get right into that today. So now in 1777, we're going to come all the way back here to the year 1777. And who's going to be in charge? And this is on your graphic, by the way, as well. If you take a look at 1777 right here. So we're looking here, and now right here, George Washington is going to be president from 1789 to 1797. But did you know, you may not be aware of this, or you might be aware of this, George Washington had been in charge in the United States for a couple decades before I'm not sure if you knew that or not, because when we had the Revolutionary War, who was the hero of the Revolutionary War? Anybody want to type it in here? Who was the hero of the Revolutionary War? Who was it? Wellington. Very good. Who else was the hero of the Revolutionary War? Who was it? His name starts with a G, second letter starts with a W. Anybody? I'm looking for the answer. George Washington. That's okay. We're here to share information, and so I'm more than willing to share the information I know with you. So in 1777, George Washington mandates a smallpox. I don't want to even say the word, but a smallpox. Let's figure out a substitute word for it, because I don't want the sound. I don't want the word to go across the screen. George Washington, that's right. And in the year 1777, during the Revolutionary War, George Washington is going to mandate a global medication for his troops. We'll call it that. Starts with a V, ends with an E. Maybe you guys have heard of this before. For smallpox. Someone put the word small. Forgive me. I just read the word. So smallpox. Okay, how you doing? Good to see you in Missouri. Thank you guys for coming by. I do appreciate it. So now, but the majority of British troops were immune due to childhood exposure, or they had already had the global medication. Small socks. Very good. Thank you guys so much. So this is going to happen in what year? 1777. And what year is the Constitution going to be signed? In 1776. The first president of the United States is going to be in 1789. So that means that we had come from a monarchy from a king's rule over in England. And so what you're talking about here is George Washington. He's going to issue a mandate for all of his troops in 1777. Well, the Revolutionary War is in 1776, you see? So that means that the British troops who had already had the global medication had created an immunity to this smallpox. And so I just want to be really careful what words I say, because I want to make sure that we stay rated PG for kids. Make sure that you show this to the kids, because if we don't teach kids, then what are we doing here? Because does anybody know what divergent thinking is? Can anybody type that in there in the chat for me, if you would, please? The words I'm saying are divergent thinking. Can you type that in the chat for me, if you would, please? Divergent thinking, Divergent thinking. Does anybody know what divergent thinking is? How come? Why would I cater all of my lectures and change my verbiage? And how come I would cater? Thank you. I appreciate you putting the words not different, divergent. Thank you. Divergent thinking. Why would I cater my lectures to children? Why would I make sure that I keep myself rated PG for children to watch these lectures instead of just the adults in the room? Why is that? And how many times have you heard children are to be seen and not heard? What a mistake that was. That was boomer mentality. Does anybody know what divergent thinking means? Does anybody know what that means? Can anybody type down what divergent thinking means? And I don't mind if you guys look it up on DuckDuckGo or whichever server you use. But if you don't know what divergent thinking is, no, but specifically, not just the children are our future. That's kind of that's an obvious answer. Why am I saying divergent thinking to you, and why am I teaching you right now divergent thinking when I teach history and I go into great detail of the unedited history of the United States of America? Why am I asking you what this means? The way the mind idea is beyond prescribed expectations and note thinking, unconventional. So no one has quite got it yet. You guys are guessing, I think, and that's okay. Right. So let me give you guys a very simple example of divergent thinking. And I'll give you the example. I'll give you the canned example that I got when I was a kid. Thinking outside of the box, that's a good way to put it. But divergent thinking specifically means when you give someone a task and they go way outside the box. They say, and the best example I got was the paperclip example, where they give you a paperclip and they say, how many different things can you do with this paperclip? And you or I, who are over 22 or 20 years old, you start to lose divergent thinking in your teen years. Some people lose it altogether right after their teen years, and they can't think outside the box anymore because you're put into a system. Why was the educational system created? The educational system was created, and we learned with the number 2 pencil so that you could go to the factories and fill in the bubbles in the factories. Literally, that's why the education system was originally created. And so when you start to talk about divergent thinking, what are you talking about? What specifically are you talking about? You're talking about people who look at a situation and they say, how many different things can you do with this paperclip? And the person says, well, does the paperclip have to be that size? Or can the paperclip be 15 feet tall and can it weigh a half an ounce? Or can the paperclip be made out of rubber? Can the paperclip be made out of styrofoam? Can we make the paperclip out of an indestructible and bendable, meldable steel? And that's what thinking outside the box is another way to say divergent thinking. And so this is why all of the lectures that I do are catered toward children, because you and I, when I talk about overturning Terry, creating the 28th, 29th Amendment, you and I may say, you know what, that's just too hard. It's never going to get done in our lifetime. And so you start to go, well, we just can't do it because you've been programmed to believe that you only have a certain amount of capability, and that capability is limited. Whereas when you sit down a 10-year-old kid and I say, hey, we need to overturn Terry versus Ohio, the 10-year-old kid says, well, what do we do? What's the first step? How do we do that? And then the ideas that you and I come up with as the adults in the room, the kids will go, you know what? There's a better way to do that. What if we did it like this? And I'm not going to go too far into exactly what that was about as far as overturning Terry, the exact tenets of overturning Terry, but make sure that you take these lectures and you sit down the children and you show them, and even the kid watching this now who's 13 years old, listen, I'm talking to you, brother. I'm talking to you, little sister. I'm talking to you. I'm talking directly to you. You're going to be the person who changes this world, and I welcome you to changing it with us together. Are you making some cobbler, Mom? Okay, give me 5 minutes. So now in 1777, George Washington, he's going to mandate the global medication for smallpox for all of the troops. Now, what happened in 1776? We got our independence, and then in 1777, George Washington's going to issue a mandate, because what's going on? We still have war going on. We still are susceptible. There's still things going on. The Declaration of Independence is signed in 1776. That's not the end of the Revolutionary War. That's just the Declaration of Independence. You see, we're just declaring that we're going to have our freedom from British Empire. That's what we're claiming. And as you know, the British Empire expands where? All the way across the world. When you talk about, there's a guy on TikTok who I absolutely cannot stand. He opens up all of his videos and says, hey, colonizer, and he's married to a white woman. His name is Lance. He's married to a white woman. His wife is white. He opens up all of his videos by saying, hey, colonizer. Well, way to lose half the room immediately. Way to divide America right down the middle. Way to separate us by race. Way to separate us by your skin color. And just so you guys know, I have the deepest empathy for the Native American people in America. However, back in the early 17th and 16th century, what was going on across the globe? Imperialism. Imperialism was popular. Imperialism was popular all the way back to the Papal Bull of 1455. Pope Alexander, Pope Nicholas, right? And so when you start to talk about these things that have bigger ideas, you have to ask yourself bigger questions. And the bigger questions are, what can we do to change it now? So now, George Washington, the Continental Army's major military campaign failed as a smallpox outbreak sweeps through its camps. So the Continental Congress authorizes George Washington to require his troops to get a global medication. Subsequent victories of American forces were attributed to the smallpox global medication mandate. Now, let me ask you guys a question. Did we have a spiked protein in 1777? Was there a spiked protein inside of the global medication? No, there was not. And what are the long-term effects on your DNA in your children when you put a spiked protein that alters DNA and RNA? What is the long-term effects? Anybody? Oh, you mean there's been no 50-year study? No, there has not. No, there's not. And then the guy who originally came up with the stepping stone to create the mRNA and the spike protein, did he just get deplatformed from Twitter? Yes, he did. And why did he? Because he said you should not be taking a booster. That's what he said. And he was deplatformed from Twitter because this is all about money and control. That's why you still continue to wear this thing on your face, even though we know that it's not effective in actually stopping a microscopic global bird flu. Let's just call it that. Okay. So now what's going to happen in 1809, Massachusetts is going to institute its first global medication mandate, and that's in 1809 in Massachusetts. And so I want someone to look this up and pop it right here into the chat so that other people, when they come back and they read this, they're going to be able to read this in the chat. And this says here, the law authorized local boards of health to require smallpox global medication for those over 21. And why over 21? How come they authorize a global medication in 1809 for people over 21? Because you don't need to put this into children. Okay, so we move forward here. And it says, however, the opposition of the mandatory global medication increased as states began to enforce laws. Global medication mandates were repealed in California, Illinois, Indiana, Montana, Utah, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. In 1905, the U.S. Supreme Court, which, by the way, I misspoke on this the other day. I have to just say something right now with the people in the room. You guys do me a favor, reach up and just tap your like button if you would, please. Reach up and tap your like button if you would, please. And then please go by my website, Delete Laws with a Z, DELETELAWZ. It's here. It's Delete Laws with a Z. And if you guys can, please pick up my poster or pick up my ebook on deletelaws.com. I do have a $5 off coupon if you put in the words overturn Terry, all one word, overturn Terry. Please go by and pick up my poster or my ebook. I am not doing enough promotions. And I've got to be able to keep going. So I've got to promote throughout my broadcasts or I'm not going to be able to continue. So, well, I will continue no matter what, but I'm going to struggle. So if you can, please go by my website, Delete Laws with a Z, and pick up my poster or my ebook, or get the laminated one or the indestructible paper one, and I do appreciate that. So then I misspoke the other day, and by the way, I noticed, one second. I noticed on some of my podcasts when I watch them back, I have certain learning disabilities like anybody else does. I tend to mess up some years. Just so you know, I watched back the one that I did last night, and I realized that I had messed up the years of Harry Anslinger. Harry Anslinger was born in 1892, not 1896, and then he dies in 1975, not 1965. So I just made some small little errors. Forgive me. And then the Louisiana Purchase was not 1830, it was 1803. So that's how you can clearly see that my brain is simply flipping numbers and I'm saying the wrong numbers. Forgive me, I apologize. So now we're going to look at the 1905 right here. The 1905 Supreme Court holding of Jacobson versus Massachusetts, and this is in 1905. Can anybody go to oyez.org and pop the link in here for Jacobson versus Massachusetts, or someone go to YouTube if you would please, and type in Jacobson versus Massachusetts. The 1905 U.S. Supreme Court case upholds and authorizes states to enforce a global medication requirement in the landmark case of Jacobson versus Massachusetts. Have you ever heard that before? Did you know that? If you didn't know that, there is already a Supreme Court holding that authorizes Congress. And this is so absolutely frustrating. This is so frustrating to know that Jacobson versus Massachusetts already exists. It's already on the books. And so what are we talking about here? We're talking about an unelected group. And who's the Supreme Court in 1905? It's going to be the Melvin P. Fuller Court. The Melvin Fuller Court in 1905, and this is on your poster, from 1888 till 1910, the Melvin P. Fuller Court. And what is that going to do? That is going to, which by the way, I researched Melvin P. As far as I possibly could. Not good, not good. Appointed, and he was not good. He was not good. I don't want to get lost on Supreme Court justices. I'm going to do a long video on all 115 Supreme Court personnel. I don't call them justices. On all 115 Supreme Court personnel. But first, I want you guys to familiarize yourself. Can you guys please, someone type that into 1905, type that into the chat, please. 1905 Jacobson versus Massachusetts. Thank you, someone put that in. Put the year in there too, please. I want people to be able to go back. Is a state issue that even the states would have to prove I'm sorry, just the facts, please. Just the facts. Only factual data here. Even if we disagree with the factual data, we want to stay as perfect as we can on facts. It's the most important thing. It's the most important thing. We have to project the truth at all times because the truth is the most important thing. There is nothing more important, and you don't want to be wrong. And if you're wrong, you have a problem because you're wrong. And I don't appreciate people who are wrong, and I hope that you don't appreciate me when I'm wrong. So just so the Organic Act, just so you know, that's going to tie. I don't want to get lost. So now, when we talk about the 1905 case of Jacobson versus Massachusetts, we're going to talk about there's two separate clauses. One is called the Commerce Clause, and one is called the Necessary and Proper Clause of the 14th Amendment. And now let's get into this a little bit. Let's get into it. Let's get into the real nitty-gritty of exactly what the Commerce Clause does and exactly what the Necessary and Proper Clause of the 14th Amendment does. The 14th Amendment is going to have the Necessary and Proper Clause, and you're going to have the Commerce Clause. And so what are these two different constitutionally defined clauses in our Constitution going to allow Congress to do to us? Okay, so when we talk about congressional power is going to be granted through Article 1 of the United States Constitution. And what exactly is that going to prove? What is it going to approve? It's going to approve Congress to do two different things. Number one, the Interstate Commerce Clause. And there are three specific factors of the Interstate Commerce Clause that you have to be acutely aware of. So number one, the commerce going between the different states, that's the first part. The application of the Commerce Clause, the actual application of it, and then the usage of the Commerce Clause. And this is going to be broken down better on a Quimby video. I don't want to get too lost in it. But then the second part is the Necessary and Proper Clause of the 14th Amendment. And what exactly does that mean? I don't mean to speak over anybody. There's just a lot of data to cover here. So you guys type that down in there because I want you guys to look it up. Look up the Necessary and Proper Clause and look up the Commerce Clause. Please take a look at those two things. Someone type that in the chat if you would, pretty please. And so when I say the Necessary and Proper Clause, why is that going to be so important today? Why is that going to be so important today? And matter of fact, I'm just going to pop this open right here for you guys so that you guys can see. Matter of fact, I do have a screenshot of this. I want you guys to take a look at this. Okay. And this is going to have a little better interpretation here. Right here. And I just want to have this down to where it's perfect. Okay, here it is. Okay, so when you talk about the Commerce Clause, there's going to be three specific factors. The channels of interstate commerce in the Commerce Clause. And then there's going to be the instrumentalities of the Interstate Commerce Clause. That's going to be part 2. And part 3 is going to be activities that substantially affect interstate commerce. So let's write those down. Let's put those into the chat here so that anybody else who's going to be watching this can then take a look at them. So there are 3 functionalities of the Commerce Clause, and these are going to be well defined. These are going to be well defined in the 1995 case of Lopez versus the United States. And Lopez, the United States, is going to be based on Congress creating gun legislation using the Commerce Clause. And so when you examine Lopez versus the United States, it's going to be struck down 5-4 by the Supreme Court. Scalia is going to vote against using the Commerce Clause, United States versus Lopez, whereas Ruth Bader Ginsburg is going to vote for using the Commerce Clause. Liberals in the Supreme Court typically always want to empower Congress to create any laws they want. It's ubiquitous throughout the history of time. When you have a liberal Supreme Court justice, what they want to do is they want to uphold anything that Congress writes. And so when you get into the Commerce Clause here, if you guys want to take a screenshot of that, just take a screenshot, everybody. Take a screenshot if you want to. And so what this is going to say is there's 3 specific parts, and I would like for you guys to write them down, someone to write them down if you would, pretty please. I appreciate that. So now there's three parts of the Commerce Clause are going to be defined in Lopez, and the first one is the channels of interstate commerce. So if you're going to create a law using the Commerce Clause in your Congress, then you have to understand that the channels of interstate commerce, the roads, the railroads, the waterways, anything that interstate commerce can be used, if it uses the channels of interstate commerce, then Congress can write a law to create a law around that because it's using the channels of interstate commerce. And this is going to go back to Vanderbilt's Railroad. It's going to go to shipping. It's going to go to trucking. Anytime you're talking about taking something from Florida to Tennessee or from Alaska into Oregon to Washington, you're using the channels of interstate commerce. And this is very important that you understand this, because Scalia is going to vote against United States versus Lopez, because the second part is the instrumentalities of interstate commerce. What are the instrumentalities? The truck, the car, the boat, the train, the actual instrument that gets it from point A to point B. Not just the roads and the waterways, it's the actual instrument, the effect. Your car is an effect, your dog is your effect. And this is extraordinarily important to understand. And then the third one is activities that substantially affect interstate commerce. And this goes back to Wicker versus Filburn, and I believe it's going to be 1948. Someone please fact check me on my years, because I've watched back a few things. I have dyslexia. I mess up years all the time. So that's going to be necessary and proper clause, Commerce Clause. That's right. The channels of interstate commerce, the instrumentalities of interstate commerce, and activities that substantially affect interstate commerce. Now, what's going to happen here? In United States versus Lopez, they're creating gun legislation. They're trying to ban guns around schools, and the conservative court strikes that down. And then United States versus Morrison, this is where a woman in Virginia Tech, I believe, Virginia Tech University, she claims that she's raped by 2 Virginia Tech football players. And what they're going to do, Congress is going to create the Violence Against Women's Act, the Violence Against Women Act. And they're going to say that it affects interstate commerce because the activities that happen on that campus would affect whether or not women wanted to go to college out of state. Now, of course, the Supreme Court's going to strike that down because it's absolutely ridiculous. But then in Gonzalez versus Reich here, this is where Attorney General Antonio Gonzalez, he raids Reich's house with her partner. I think that they were partners. And what happens is Reich then sues Gonzalez and says, hey, you violated my rights because you're using the interstate commerce to try to regulate homegrown marijuana. And then Anthony Scalia, he's going to uphold the actual law created by Congress, but he's going to uphold it based on using the necessary and proper clause that Congress is allowed to create any laws to effectuate laws throughout the United States of America. So in other words, and this is the whole crux of what I'm trying to get to here. When you have the Commerce Clause and you have the necessary and proper clause, then you have unbridled lawmaking by Congress. And what has been the effect of that? What has been the effect of unbridled lawmaking of Congress? Well, there's the effects right there. There's the effects right there. You're looking at them. There's the effects of Congress being allowed to create any laws that they want, and all they have to use is the Commerce Clause or the Necessary and Proper Clause, and they can just say, hey, we're creating laws to properly effectuate laws in the United States of America. And what do you get out of that when you allow Congress unbridled power? Then you create a police state, prison state. I mean, this is this is the effects of giving Congress unlimited unbridled authority to create laws using the Necessary and Proper Clause or the Commerce Clause. Now, just so you know, here's how you know that power corrupts but absolute. So from 1995 to 2005, the Rehnquist Court, all of the members of the Rehnquist Court are the exact same 9 Supreme Court personnel who are all appointed that don't answer to you and me. And so when it gets to the Gonzalez versus Wright case, Anthony Scalia says, no, I disagree with using the Commerce Clause, but instead I would invoke the Necessary and Proper Clause. And Scalia, by the way, he's then shouted down by Sandra Day O'Connor, who's also an appointed authoritarian on the Supreme Court, who votes against the Gonzalez versus Reich holding. I believe it was passed 6-3, and both Scalia and Kennedy switched sides. They had both voted against Lopez, they voted against Morrison, and they voted for Reich. And the reason why is because they didn't like marijuana. That's just the simple fact of it. They had their own personal bias. And if you guys have not read the 1944 LaGuardia report, I give it away for free. You guys, please contact me. I give it away 100% for free. If you have not read the LaGuardia report, you, my friend, are missing out. Because the LaGuardia report's 80 years old now, but they do double-blind studies in there. It is absolutely invigorating to read that. It is... When you read the LaGuardia report, you're like, oh my God. So just so you know, when you hear about marijuana, and we're going to step back here to the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act here, the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act. And so what are we talking about here? The 1944 LaGuardia report, and the airport in New York is named after the governor of New York, LaGuardia. I can't pronounce his first name. What was LaGuardia's first name? He had an Italian first name. I don't want to guess. So now when we talk about the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act, the pushback from that was from LaGuardia, the governor of New York, who then did a 4-year study on marijuana from 1939 to 1943. They published the findings in 1944, if I'm correct on my years, because I make a lot of mistakes with the years. And what happens is they do a bunch of double-blind studies. I mean, has anybody here even taken a look at the LaGuardia? I don't want to be rude. Fiorello. I can't say it. Fiorello. So has anybody here read the 1944? I just sent that off to Carlos Miller from Panac. Photography is not a crime, Panac. Carlos Miller and I have been friends since 2007. I'm doing his podcast this week. I was correct on my years, thank God. I watched the previous couple of podcasts and my years are just all over the place. I even made a mistake on the Louisiana Purchase by 30 years, which is a very big deal if you go 1803 to 1830. So if you have not read the LaGuardia report, then I recommend, T. Roy, please put up the website, Delete Laws. Let's do another promo, guys. I got to sell some posters. I got to sell some ebooks. I absolutely have to. So please, if you guys can, please go by and pick up an ebook or a poster. This is my website, deletelaws.com. T-Roy does have coupons for $5 off. You can use Overturn Terry or Troy promo, and that'll give you $5 off any of my ebooks or my posters. I do appreciate that. These are my cup of coffee funds here. Please, guys, if you can, contribute to my cup of coffee fund. I greatly appreciate it. I realize that I still have not really created an income here the last couple months, so I absolutely have got to try to raise some cash. And please go by and at least get the ebook and read it to kids. Read it to kids. Read it to children. Read it to children. So, and then by the way, you know, there's no charge for the LaGuardia report. And then if you guys don't have any money for the ebook or poster, I'll give it to you for free. So I gave away about 40 of them last night because people had sent me emails and requested it. I gave away 40 last night. If you guys didn't get my ebook or my poster and I sent it to you, check your spam folder. I sent it. I only got one request to open up that file. And so I will hit you guys back if the Gmail doesn't allow you to get access to the folder. And so now, as we continue down the line, so we're at the 1905 case of Jacobson versus Massachusetts, and we're talking about the history of global medication mandates in the United States of America. But you first have to understand the necessary and proper clause and the commerce clause are going to allow Congress to create legislation that will reinstitute another mandate. And that's the reason why I said this. I realize that I talk I realize that I have a lot of information, and so sometimes you guys just have to let me know if I'm saying things you don't understand. Please just make sure that you ask me, hey, I don't understand what you're talking about, and I do glance over and take a look at the comments. So if I ever say anything you don't know what I'm talking about or it's not making sense to you, stop me and say, hey, explain this to me, and I'll stop the lecture and I'll explain to you how important the Commerce Clause is and the necessary and proper clause. Okay, yeah, right there's Troy promo and Overturn Terry. That gets you guys $5 off my ebook or poster. If you can, that brings it down to $20, $19.99. Thank you. I do appreciate your support, and I absolutely need you guys to continue to support the mission. And we don't stop. We don't stop. We don't stop until we overturn Terry. We don't stop under any circumstances, for any reason. Nothing deters us. Nothing pulls us from the mission. Nothing ever, ever, ever stops this train. Terry will fall in our lifetimes, and it will be because you did it. Not me. I just showed you where to look. And then everything you put should say hashtag overturn Terry. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to come right back to my notes here. And so then in 1813, Congress is going to establish The United States Global Medication Agency. So that starts with a V and ends with an E. In 1813, someone, can you type that in there for me in the notes, because I want people to be able to read this. In 1813, it's called Act to Encourage, V ends with an E. Act to Encourage, V ends with an E. Okay, and that's an actual 1813 Congress establishes the U.S. V agency. Have you guys ever heard of that before? Who's heard of the 1813? Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Tessa. I appreciate that. Has anybody ever heard of that before? Have you ever researched that before? Has anybody ever read that before? Has anybody ever read the 1813 U.S. V agency? Have you read about that? I read about it. It's disgusting. Wait till you read it. Wait till you read it. It is going to absolutely blow you away how much power the government takes from us and says, we're your daddy. And my friends, let me tell you something. No, you're not. Our Bill of Rights is not established by this government. Our Bill of Rights is established by John Locke's Lockean theory and divine morality. That your body does not belong to you, it belongs to God. Now, you don't have to be a religious person to understand exactly what he's saying here. John Locke is saying that your body, you are inherently inalienable given these first 10 amendments. The government, our United States government, does not decide what rights we have. Our rights are inalienable, given to us by God. Do you understand that?
No, you're fine. We're going to bed though. Your dessert's on your
Thank you.
table.
Thank you. My parents are crashing. So do you understand that? Your rights are inalienable, not granted by the United States government. Your rights are granted to you by God. Your body, your soul, your spirit, your brain, your person is a divine entity created by God. And if you guys have not seen Jeffrey Kaplan's 32-minute video on divine morality, I highly recommend that you look it up. Can someone type that in the chat, please? Divine Morality by Jeffrey Kaplan. And that's going to be based off John Locke's theory of divine morality. He gives a much better definition than I'm going to be able to give in this first couple minutes here. So I want you guys to look it up. I want you guys to look that up. Jeffrey Kaplan. Can someone please type that in there for me, if you would, please? Jeffrey Kaplan, Divine Morality. And whether you're a religious person or not, and I'm not specifically a religious person, I don't go to church. I was raised Catholic. I've read the Bible from front to back. It was my first real study, was the Bible. And that's what made me an atheist for 20 years. And now I have found a belief in a higher power. Jeffrey Kaplan, Kaplan. Jeffrey Kaplan, thank you. It's Kaplan. He gives an amazing lecture on divine morality, 32 minutes long. His lecture structure, by the way, he also gives the same lecture on conceptual analysis, and I highly recommend that you guys take a look at conceptual analysis. I'm with my parents right now over the holidays. My mom is recovering from a stroke, and I'm helping her. I've been rubbing her back and her legs as she's recovering from a stroke. Thank you for being so insensitive. I do appreciate that. Thank you. It was very kind of you to say that. So now, as we continue forward, if you guys have not read the Act to Encourage V's, then I highly recommend that you take a look at that as you move forward. And the United States Postal Service was required to carry V-related packages under 5 ounces for free to aid the agency towards the mass V agenda in America, and that is from 1813. That is from 1813. And so now, as we move forward, we're going to have in 1855. Thank you. I do appreciate your support. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And so, I'm going to get that today. By the way, you guys, I got a death threat today from someone who I believe is a police officer. I got a death threat today. Someone threatened me today, threatened my life on YouTube comments. It was a profile that had no views, no videos, no followers. And what they said to me is, we know where you live. We know where your family is. And that's the death threat I got today. I got that death threat today from someone who I think was because it was on a video that's anti-cop. And so that's what I got today. And I will not be deterred. Don't think I'm afraid of you. I'm not. You don't scare me, because if you do something to me, you galvanize this movement, you galvanize these people, and then you're going to have tens of thousands of people like me if anything happens to me. Just remember that. Just remember that. Right now, I just get 100 people at a time on my lives. If something happens to me, you will galvanize these people. You will galvanize these people. Okay, so now as we move forward. In 1855, Massachusetts is going to institute the first mandatory school V's, the most mandatory, in 1855. In all 50 states, V mandates for children attending school. Religious exemptions are allowed in 44 states, as well as in DC, and 15 states allow for exemptions because the parents of philosophical beliefs. You mean like the philosophical belief that I shouldn't have to put anything in my body that I don't want to because I'm a free person based on John Locke's theory of liberty right here? You mean based on the Enlightenment thinkers that my body is my own and the government doesn't own my body and the rights given to me are given to me by a higher power, by God? Is that what you're talking about? Is that what you're talking about right here? Because I think that's what he's talking about right here, right? And so now as we continue on, it says, but a philosophical belief, however, all states allow for medical exemptions. So just remember that. All states allow for medical exemptions. So what's my medical exemption? Well, I don't want to take a chance and be a guinea pig for the big pharma companies that are making $65,000 a minute. The pharmaceutical companies right this minute are making $65,000 a minute. Just so you know, okay? So then in 1867, you're going to have the Ohio Board of Health passes a law requiring citizens to get available Vs in the event of future epidemics. They call it epidemics instead of a pandemic. And so the mandates announced in Urbana Union, July 10th of 1867. Has anybody ever heard of this before? It's Urbana, Ohio, 1867. Please put this in the chat if you would, please. It is Urbana, Urbana, Ohio, 1867. The Board of Health passes a law requiring citizens to get the V. And this is in 1867, in the event that there's a future V. So then as we move forward into conceptual analysis, what is that year? 1867. So who's going to be required to get the mandatory V? What happens in 1865? Slavery is abolished. So in 1867, if you have to have a mandatory V, well, then that's going to go into the 1876 case of Reese versus the United States, which is going to allow states to create barriers to voting. So if you have the 1867 Urbana, Ohio mandatory V, well, then the 1876 case of Reese, all they have to do to create barriers for voting is say that if you don't have the mandatory V from the Urbana, Ohio Board of Health, well, then maybe you just can't vote. In case maybe there's a future epidemic. You see? Do you see how everything ties together in conceptual analysis? Do you see how that all works together? And so the mandates announced in Urbana, a photo of the articles tweeted by Central Michigan University historian Andrew Weirman. So if you guys want to look up this Twitter account, it is by Central Michigan University professor and historian Andrew Weirman, W-E-H-R-M-A-N, Andrew Weirman, W-E-H-R-M-A-N. If you guys have not heard of that before. And so this is going to be authored, The Contagion of Liberty, Smallpox in the American Revolution by Professor Weirman. Has anybody ever heard of that before? So could someone type this in again? I want to make sure that we get enough data out there. That's the last name. Andrew Weirman is his name. And the name of the article that he wrote is The Contagion of Liberty, smallpox in the American Revolution. I think that's an article that every one of us here should take a look at. I personally have not read this article yet, so this is going to be education for me and for you. And I send out so much data to people. If you guys want to email me that data, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And that's going to be The Contagion of Liberty, Smallpox in the American Revolution. If you guys haven't heard of that before, I want to make sure that we talk about that now. And so then Professor Weirman after Jim Jordan, congressional, tweeted, so Weirman, by the way, is going to be a liberal professor from the University of Michigan and Central Michigan University. And so, and he tweets this to counter Jim Jordan's congressional district where Jim Jordan had tweeted that mandatory Vs are un-American, which they are un-American if we go back to the Enlightenment thinking of number one principle of America is what? What's the number one principle of America? What is it? It is liberty, that you are free, that you are a free person. You will make your own decisions for what's best for you. That's what America is founded on. If you didn't know it, now you know. Welcome to knowledge. And so as we continue down the line here, and then you're going to have the 1898 UK V allows objections and exemptions to V mandates. The law conscientious clause to allow exemptions to mandatory Vs. This clause is originally from the term conscientious objector. Does anybody not know what a conscientious objector is? Does anybody not know what a conscientious objector is? Have you guys ever heard of that before? Have you guys ever heard of a conscientious objector? And let me just spell that word for you. C-O-N-S-C-I-E-N-T-I-O-U-S, conscientious. Conscientious objector. If you don't know what that means, a conscientious objector is someone who refuses to do something, whether it's a law or not, because they consciously are choosing to break the law. It's a conscientious objector. It's a very easy way to define it. A conscientious objector. Okay? Very, very, very important. What was the question? I'm sorry, I didn't see the question. The question was, I didn't see the question. I'll come back around. And so this clause is from the now, which refers to those who object to compulsory military service. So compulsory military, and so let's check the year of that. That's going to be 1898. And so what are you going to have in 1897? Okay, so now this is conscientious objector. Thank you very much, Ramon. I appreciate you typing that there. And so now how are these things going to tie together in conceptual analysis so that you can put it into a context that you understand exactly what's happening in the United States of America? So you're going to have the conscientious objector clause created, the term created in 1898, because what happens in 1897? What happens in 1897? Anybody? It's called the Espionage Act. Did anybody know that? In 1897, you have the Espionage Act in America, and the Espionage Act is going to do what? It's going to make it so that if you say anything that's un-American, well, then you are an enemy of America. And what is un-American? Anything the government tells you to do that you don't agree with, you now are an enemy of the government. You are an enemy of America. Good to see you. Good to see you, M-Star. Thanks. So now the conscientious objector term is going to be created in direct response to the 1897 Espionage Act. And how is that going to play in later? That's going to play in later when you take a look at the 1919 case of Cynic versus the United States. Okay. Okay. So now as we move forward, I hope you guys can hear me, but my folks went to bed, so I want to just make sure I'm going to try to talk towards the microphone so I can keep my voice down a little bit so that my folks can crash here. Thank you. Appreciate you coming lively. And so now more than 200,000 V exemptions had been issued by the end of 1898. And why were 200,000 V exemptions issued by the end of 1988? Because you had 200,000 people who said, I'm not joining the military. I'm not going to be compulsed to join the military. That's called a compulsory order. Compulsory meaning we're going to make you do it. And so you had 200,000 young men who said, I'm not going to join the military. Sorry. My life is my own. The 13th Amendment says abolish slavery. And so I'm not going to be joining the military because you compulsory dictate that I have to join the military. Okay. So then as we continue down the line here, oh man, I did read this actually today. I actually read this. There's a video on this as well. There's a video on this, and it's called the Biological Control Act. Has anybody ever heard of the Biological Control Act of 1902? Has anybody ever heard of that before? The Biologics Control Act. Anybody ever heard of that before? Let me someone put this in the chat for me, please. It's a BIOLOGICS, Biologics Control Act. Can you guys put that in the chat for me if you would, please? I would appreciate that. The law is in response to the tetanus outbreak in Camden, New Jersey, and St. Louis caused by contaminated V's. You can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. You can't make it up. So the Biological Control Act is passed in response to the tetanus outbreak in Camden, New Jersey and St. Louis caused by contaminated V's. It's the first modern piece of federal legislation to regulate the manufacture of pharmaceuticals. The law created the Hygienic Laboratory of the United States Public Health Service, which eventually became the National Institute of Health. So the National Institute of Health is based off the Biologics Control Act of 1902, and the Biologics Control Act is created in response to a tetanus outbreak by contaminated V's in Camden, New Jersey and in St. Louis. Did you know that? If you didn't know that, now you know it. So now this gives you a jumping point for you to start your research. Don't wait for me to send you the data. You now know where to look. So to look into that, look in the 1902 Biologics Control Act. And then you can have a basis of understanding that it's caused by contaminated V's. You see? You see? So now you have a jump off point here where you can start your own research. And so this is going to create the National Institute of Health. And is the National Institute of Health working on our side right now? The Biological Control Act was created because of contaminated V's. And so now when we have the National Institute of Health, is the National Institute of Health working for us or working against us? How many people put up a post and they get that slapped up a warning that this information could be faulty because it doesn't come from the National Institute of Health? You see? You see? And so now, as we move forward here, what we're talking about, we're gonna go right into the 1905 case of Jacobson versus Massachusetts that we talked about earlier. And then there's a Supreme Court case for you guys to read. I actually researched this case earlier today. I went into some great detail about this. And so what I want you guys to do is the case is called Zucht versus King. It's a 1922 case. The way you spell Zucht is Z-U-C-H-T. Z-U-C-H-T, Zucht versus King. So please, if you guys would, take a look at Zucht, Z-U-C-H-T versus King, 1922. The United States Supreme Court decided that unV'd students could constitutionally be excluded from attending schools in the District of San Antonio, Texas. So San Antonio, Texas here in 1922, San Antonio, Texas down here in 1922, the Supreme Court is going to hold that you can be excluded from attending school in San Antonio, and the decision is upheld in the local governments to require mandatory V's as condition for attending public schools. Has anybody here heard of Zucht versus King before? Has anybody heard of Zucht versus King? Z-U-C-H-T v. King, 1922. Has anybody heard of that case before? Anybody heard of that case before? Zucht versus King. And that's going to be in San Antonio, Texas, where there's, remember, so just so you know, when OSHA goes to the Supreme Court this year in 2022, be prepared for them to hold against us. Be prepared for constitutional cities to be born in America. That's going to happen. That's going to happen. That's the next step. So just be ready for that. And I implore everybody here to read the case holding on Justia of Zucht versus King. Okay, so now the ruling is going to, for unV'd individuals can be denied access to education. The court argued that public health trumps an individual's rights to education. And so now what does that mean? That you have to get your education right here, so I'm happy to educate you. If you can be denied school access because the unelected Supreme Court is going to say that you're not qualified because you won't take a mandatory V, I'll be more than happy to take the place of that ridiculousness and share my time with you educating. I have no problem doing it. So if they're going to ban you from going to school, welcome to knowledge right here. It doesn't cost you a dime. So now as we move forward here, and then you're going to get to the 1944 Supreme Case Court of Prince versus Massachusetts. The court ruled that mandating childhood V's comes under the doctrine of parens patriae. So it's P-A-R-E-N-S, second word P-A-T-R-I-A-E. So could someone type that down in there for me, pretty please, with cherries on top? So it's going to be under the doctrine of parens, P-A-R-E-N-S, second word P-A-T-R-I-A-E. Can someone type that in there for me right there? I'd appreciate that. In which the state experts, oh my God, in which state exerts authority over child welfare. That's what the doctrine of parens patriae is where the states exert authority over your child's welfare. In their decision, Supreme Court justices wrote that parental authority is not absolute and can be restricted if doing so is in the child's best interest. So the doctrine of parens patriae says that the government can take care and parent your child better than you can. If you don't want to get the mandatory V for your child, well then you're a bad parent. And the government can step in and say that it's in the child's best interest. They went on to say that freedom of religion does not give parents the right to expose their community or a child to a communicable disease or the child of the possibility to illness and death. Well, it's P-A-R-E-N-S and then P-A-T-R-I-A-E. So I believe it's a Latin term. I want to make sure you guys understand that. And what parens patriae says is that The government will decide and take the welfare of your child over you. It exempts the parents' rights. It literally says the state exerts authority over child welfare. Parent authority is not absolute and can be restricted if it's in the child's best interest. Freedom of religion does not give parents the right to expose their community or their child to communicable diseases and to the child to the possibility of illness or death. Well, let me just tell you something. When you force my kid to take a mandatory V, you're the one who's exposing my child to the possibility of illness or death. I will not comply, and I suggest you do the same. So then you have the 1977 nationwide childhood immunization initiative. So this is called the 1977 Childhood Immunization Initiative. The goal of $58 million federal program run by the United States Secretary of Education and Welfare Joseph A. Califano Jr. was to get 90% of children under the age of 15 fully immunized by October of 1979. A nationwide advertisement campaign featuring Star Wars characters and celebrity athletes urged parents to get their children the V under preventable diseases such as measles, mumps, rubella, polio, typhoid, and on. Dr. Alan Hinman, former chief of the immunization program for the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, called the program successful. We will meet the target for school-age children, and I think we will have a clear exceeded it when all the information is in by January 1st, 1980, and that's a quote by Dr. Alan Hinman. So let me ask you guys a question real quick. Just real quick poll here real quick. Let me see how many people know the difference. I just want to see if you guys have been paying attention and if you actually understand the difference between the vaccinate. I want you guys to know the difference between the V available in 1979 through the United States Secretary of Health of Education and between the V available today. In 1979, did that have a spike protein in it? Yes or no? Anybody? In 1979, did the V's have a spiked protein in the mRNA V? Was there a spiked protein in the 1979? Anybody? No? You guys are an educated group of people. There was no spiked protein in these particular V's in 1979. I received a bunch of V's as a kid. There was no spiked protein in there that would affect my RNA, that would affect my DNA. It didn't exist in 1979. And the guy who invented the RNA spike protein was just kicked off of Twitter because you shouldn't be taking a booster. And so then, and that's going to happen from 1979 to 1980. And then in 1980, all 50 states have laws requiring these for children to attend public school. And so as I've been saying over and over here, if your child is not allowed to attend public school, you no longer need to go to a public school to get an education. As a matter of fact, I would even argue that the more truthful, coherent, and accurate information about education is now available online than compared to going to one of these indoctrination public schools. And oh, by the way, you might send your kid to school and he might learn that the color of his skin makes him privileged. And I have a real problem with that. Because you're not privileged because of the color of your skin. The laws that were crafted against people of color is the actual problem. You're not privileged because of the color of your skin. You're not born with privilege because of the color of your skin. Because as you know from Black Pete out of the Netherlands, who were the slave traders then? It was the Moors who were going over and kidnapping children from Spain and Portugal, and they took over Spain, and it would later be called Al-Undundus, and this is in the 16th century. So you're not privileged because of the color of your skin, because the Moors were actually the imperialists and the colonizers back in the 16th century, 17th century. These are just facts of history here. These are facts of history. So in states, the mandate applied to children of all grade levels, and those licensed preschool settings that required V's were either specified by law itself or by the state health officer, by the state board of health. By 1998, 1999, 46 states with the exemptions of Louisiana, Michigan, South Carolina, West Virginia had V requirements for all grades from kindergarten to 12th grade. It's right there. It's right there. It's right there in black and white. So do you think that that's good? Do you think that that's good? Do you think that, who think that's a good thing? Who think that's a good thing that the government can decide? I mean, the one that really still has me just kind of upside down is the parens patria. Parens, does anybody know how to say that properly? Does anybody know how to say that properly? You know how to say that properly? The parens patria, in which state exerts authority over the welfare of your child. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely insane. You guys, I gotta sell some posters here real quick. Let me try to sell some posters. I do appreciate you guys coming by. I do have 3 levels of posters available on my website. I have not been actively promoting my own business, and I absolutely have to do it. So if you guys would please consider going by my website, deletelaws.com, and please pick up my poster. I have a $25 digital poster that you get for 20 bucks with a T-Roy discount. I have a $99 version, and I have a $135 version. I also have an ebook that's available for $19.99 with the T-Roy discount, or it's $24.99. Please go by my website, Delete Laws, and consider picking up some of my products. I appreciate it. These are my cup of coffee funds here. If you learn absolutely anything from me, please don't hesitate to buy me a cup of coffee. I really appreciate that. Remember, I'm not talking about an espresso. I'm talking about a black cup of coffee, just like I like my women hot and black. That's a great joke, isn't it? It's a great joke. It's a great joke. And that's not entirely true. I like all women of all colors, but I don't have any particular so there's my website, Delete Laws. If you would please go by my website and pick up this poster. I have a digital version, I have a $99 version and a $135 version. I also have these pay apps here that are available for a cup of coffee. If you learn anything from me, please, if 100 people pick me up a cup of coffee, then I can get the sound machine I want for this phone so that you don't hear an echo when I talk. It's called a Shure Sound Machine, S-H-U-R-E, and that's the next purchase I'm gonna do so that you guys can hear me speak better. If you please would go by and pick me up a cup of coffee, I'm in your debt. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support. Which, by the way, it's such a great joke. It's so funny, isn't it? I heard that joke after a bunch of people from TikTok called me a racist. Someone said, at that time I had been dating a black girl, and someone said to me that joke, how do you like your coffee? And I said, I like it black. And he said, black and hot, just like your women. And I said, oh my God, we're not dating anymore. But anyway, it's not the point. So it was just a really funny joke. I really appreciate you guys. So what now? Here's and then so now as we continue down the line here, and so now we're looking at in 1987. The Arizona Court of Appeals decides Maricopa County Health versus Harmon. So if you guys can type that down in there for me, if you would please. It's called Maricopa County Health Department versus Harmon, Harmon. That's 1987. So please put that into the chat so other people who are going to read this chat later have something to follow, especially for the deaf. I want them to make sure that they can be able to read it from the chat right here. Yeah, it's a very old joke. It's really funny. It's really funny. I don't have any affinity toward any one particular race of woman. I have an affinity toward beautiful, attractive, sexy women. So that's just the way it is. I'm not married, so I still, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So now, so the 1987 court case of Maricopa County Health Department versus Harmon. I still haven't seen it in there. If someone can please type that in there for me, pretty please, with cherries on top. I would appreciate it. I want to make sure people get as much information as they possibly can from each and every live event that we do together. Because remember, I may be the professor here, but you're my teacher, you're my professor. I'm here to learn from you. So you have the ball. Feel free to educate me. It's called Maricopa County Health Department versus Harmon, Harmon, 1987, the Arizona Court of Appeals. And that's where that's going to come from. So if you would please type that in there, I appreciate that. Like Jacobson versus Massachusetts, this case upheld the availability of the government to exclude students from public school if they failed to comply with mandatory Vs. The court rejected the argument that a child's right to education should supersede the state's need to protect the children from infectious disease because if unconfirmed, the risk of infection was just too great. Sound familiar? Does that sound familiar to you? Does that sound like absolute government control to you? Is that what that sounds like to you? That's what it sounds like to me. That the government is going to take absolute control over me and over my child. And I got a major problem with that. It just... I got to keep my cool because I want children to be able to watch this and be able to share this parasitical chair. Ooh, it just made me mad. Hold on. It just choked me up. Let me just take a second. Who the hell do you think you are? If you're a state official, Who the hell do you think you are? You do not get to decide the best welfare for my child. You do not get to decide the best welfare for our children. You are a state government employee. You do not have the right to parent my kids or tell me how to parent my kid. So 2015, California becomes the first state to eliminate personal belief exemptions to the V for children in public and private school. 2015, an outbreak of measles occurred in children in California visiting Disneyland. The cleanest, nicest place to go is Disneyland, as you all know. And in another theme park, some parents believe that the claiming of a religious exemption to avoid their children getting a V since 2015, 5 more states have eliminated V exemptions in public schools, and those states are Connecticut, Mississippi, Maine, New York, and West Virginia, which is just astounding to me, just astounding to me. Who the hell do you think you are? What are you talking about? Who the hell do you think you are? If your V works so well, then why are your kids getting sick? If it works so great, then how come kids are getting sick? If you have this global medication that's going to make everything better, then why are the kids getting sick from the measles in 2015? If your V works so well, then why is that happening? Oh, it's because the people who didn't have the mandatory V. Is that what you're trying to tell me? Nonsense, poopy pants. Nonsense. I mean, I can't believe how literally physically mad this makes me. So then in 2021, and this will kind of round out, and we're coming up on 65 minutes, so then I'll take a few questions. In 2021, Biden announces sweeping V mandate. The mandate includes Vs for all federal workers, healthcare workers, and workers at companies with more than 100 employees. It could apply to more than 100 million Americans. In the speech announcing the sweeping initiative, Biden said that V Americans are losing patience. Oh, the V people are losing patience with me. I'm losing patience with you, bud, you sheep. Okay, and then it says they're losing patience who refuse to get the V, and your refusal has cost us all. Oh, so you mean that the lab in Wuhan that was led by Anthony Fauci, where they were doing gain of function to create the most powerful virus possible, that had nothing to do with it? It's my fault because I don't want to get a mandatory V, and oh, by the way, I only get one life, and oh, by the way, your mandatory V can make me impotent, it can make me sterile, it can make me so I get my knees and my back go crooked, and you're going to tell me that I have to get it so I can play the guinea pig to Pfizer, who doesn't have to release records for 55 years? I'll be dead, but you don't care if I die now. And the people who are getting the mandatory V, they're losing patience with me. I'm losing patience with you. So Biden said that the V Americans are losing patience, and so then as we go on and on and on. But I think of this particular lecture tonight, what I'd like people to really take a real good look at, and I want this to kind of be the overall theme of this particular lecture, is it's Parens Patriae, Parens Patriae, the doctrine of Parens Patriae, in which state exert authority over child welfare. And I believe that this is the beginning of the tyrannical division of family youth services in America. Okay, oh, thanks. T. Roy just put the $5 off coupon in there. If you guys would please go by, pick up my poster, my ebook. I really appreciate it. I literally have been stuck for a while, so I appreciate that. Anyway, this isn't about me, this is about us, and so I want you guys to truly understand. And the case this is going to be based off of is the 1944 U.S. Supreme case of Prince versus Massachusetts, where you're going to get the doctrine of Parens Patriae. The 1944 U.S. Supreme Court case of Prince versus Massachusetts. These particular V cases are not on the poster. However, you can add them right on. It's indestructible paper. So please, you guys, take a look at this. I want this to be the resounding message of this, the 1944 case of Prince versus Massachusetts, where it held that mandating childhood Vs comes under the doctrine of Parens Patriae, in which states exert authority over child welfare. The justices wrote that parental authority is not absolute, and the state can move in to the child's best interest. Who has the best interest of the child, the parent or the state? Who do you think it is? Anybody? Who thinks it has the child's best interest? Is it the parent or is it the state? Which one is it? Which one is it? Because I believe that parents have the best interest of their children at heart. I don't think there's a parent alive who's raised their kid who says to themselves, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to make this decision because it's against my child's best interest. What does it go down to? What does everything circulate around to? What does everything focus on? What does the entire circle of life revolve around when you talk about the rights of the individual in America? What does it all boil down to? It boils down to the Fourth Amendment. You have the right to be secure in your person, houses, papers, and effects. I don't remember 1944, Prince versus Massachusetts. I don't remember the Fourth Amendment in 1776, ratified in 1791. I don't remember the Fourth Amendment says you have the right to be secure in your person, houses, papers, and effects. I don't remember this having to do with the government deciding that they would decide what's best for your child. Where does it say here that if the government decides what's best for your child, that they can go ahead and create the parents' patria? Where does that say that? Does that say that? Where does it say it? Can someone show me where that says that? Because I don't see where it says that in there. This says you have the right to be secure in your person, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures, and it shall not be violated. And so then in 1944, it's going to say that parents don't have the best interest of their child. The unelected Supreme Court, they have the best interest of your child. These people here have the best interest of your children. And why do we know that? Because power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. You see? And nothing is going to change until you and I absolutely refuse to comply in every single way, shape, and form. I will not comply. I will not comply. I will not comply. You cannot make me. God have mercy on your soul if you try. You have to stop complying to these tyrants. We as a people have to bond together and say we will no longer comply. You saw it the other day when I audited those cops and I didn't mean to audit them. They pulled me over for no reason. I explained to the officer, you pulled me over for no reason. You can clearly see the road was closed. I wouldn't have made a red light turn. The causation of me running a red light was because there was no signage for the road being closed. But yet we have to continually put up with this nonsense over and over and over again. Reading that parens patria from the 1944 case of Prince versus Massachusetts, my heart rate began to pulse. I could feel the blood in my face start to palpitate. I could literally feel myself get angry. And I don't want to show this anger to children. I don't want to show this anger to children. But at the same time, I want the children to take a look at someone who's a principled person that cares about you and cares about how you feel, and realize that your parents do have the best interest for you. Your parents care about you. Your parents love you. If they're telling you that they don't want you to get a mandatory V, it's because they love you and they care about you. And even if they're wrong, they still have the best interest of the welfare of the child at heart. And parents patria says that the government can supersede the parents' right, and parents' rights are not absolute. What the heck are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? It's anti-American. It's anti-American. Jim Jordan was right in his tweet against Andrew Werman from the Central Michigan State University. He was incorrect. All right. Do I have any questions here? Do I have any questions? Are there any questions about anything that we learned tonight? Do you guys have any questions about anything that we covered tonight that you want to ask me now while I'm here? Oh man, it's absolutely atrocious. Yes, I have heard of it. Have you guys read that? Have you guys take a look at Bill it's S1619? You guys take a look at that bill, and I believe there's another bill that T. Roy, you sent me a bill the other day. T. Roy, what was the name of that bill? I think the bill was it 1469? Is that the bill that you sent me the other day? Is that the bill that you sent me the other day, T. Roy? Is that the bill you sent me? I think it was. I think that it was. Yeah. So now I'll take any questions from you guys if you guys have any questions at all about any of the material that we covered tonight. So I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to learn something. And if your child is excluded from school and they don't have an opportunity to get an education, I'm more than willing to spend my time teaching U.S. history, the fundamentals of law. T. Roy, you sent me a bill the other day that's being pushed through Congress now that is absolute and total tyranny. Light worker, did you just get here because we went over that? Are they unconstitutional according to the Bill of Rights, according to the thinkers of John Locke? Absolutely. Has the Supreme Court bastardized our rights? 100%. And so what we're talking about here is we're talking about, your right to be free, your right to liberty, your right to parent your own children. That's what we're talking about here. That's what we're talking about. You think schools can use in I don't know what that means. do you think schools can use in loco parents v kids? I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. I just can't understand the actual verbiage of what you're trying to say. I'm not trying to be rude or anything. I just don't understand exactly what you're saying. So you guys, please go by my website, Delete Laws, pick up one of my posters or my ebook. T-Roy is giving a $5 off coupon. Here is the information here. Go to Delete Laws with a Z. Make sure you go to the Delete Laws with a Z. And then these are my cup of coffee funds if you guys want to be so inclined and you learned anything at all from me today. If you learned anything at all from me, please pick me up a cup of coffee if you would, please. I'm not talking about a latte unless you're ballin'. And then I like my vanilla latte with 3 shots of espresso. But otherwise, I'm talking about a black cup of coffee. A black cup of coffee from Starbucks or from Coffee Bean makes me so happy. You can get my poster or my ebook here. And oh, by the way, if you don't have that cash, I will give you the ebook and the poster for free. Don't think that you have to have any funds to participate in the movement of freedom and liberty with me and what I'm doing and what we're doing here. If you don't have any money, you simply send me an email and I will send you off. Someone contacted me yesterday and said, hey, I don't have any money, but I'm going to buy this next week. And I said, you're going to get it now. And I sent it off yesterday. I sent off everything that I offer yesterday. There's no delay. Sometimes there's 24 hours before I can get to my computer and get the things done because I never stop. I don't ever stop. T-Roy knows I never, ever, ever stop. I'm always putting something together. Always. There's no point. I don't have a wife. I don't have any kids. This is my life. This is my whole sense of being. This is who I am as a person. This is what I represent. This is what I stand for. These are my principles. So I will never stop. I will never stop. I mean, that person who represented himself as a police officer who threatened my life today, my friend, you're a fool. You're a fool. Okay. 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 Do I have any other questions today? I'm gonna try to get out of here. I'm gonna try to have because I have to put together a presentation for Turning Point. I'm trying to get. I want Turning Point to be the funder of my next documentary. I want Turning Point to be the funder of my next documentary, Turning Point USA. Because as I sue these people and I take them to court and I take them off social media using what's called equitable relief under tort law, and I'm going to sue them in 4 different federal district courts. There's 8 people I'm suing, and 2 of those are the social media companies directly, not YouTube, but Instagram and TikTok. I eventually want to be able to dissolve Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1997. That's my ultimate goal and why I'm suing these people. It's not just I'm upset that they defamed me. I am upset they defamed me, but more than that, after I sue them and successfully beat them, I can then say that both TikTok and Instagram worked as editors and not publishers, and that will take a shot at creating a constitutional case against TikTok and against Instagram. And that's my overall goal. And YouTube would support that because they don't like Instagram and they don't like TikTok. So I have no problem with YouTube. So I do appreciate the opportunity to speak here today. If anybody has anything to offer, please don't hesitate to email me. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. Listen, I cannot answer every single email and phone call and text message anymore. There's just too many thousands of people. But you know what? I'm here. If you guys have any questions and it's pressing, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to support you in any way I possibly can, okay? So if anybody have any questions, if not, I'm going to get the hell out of here. I'm going to get the hell out of here. As far as you know, I don't have the answer to everything. If we could end child trafficking, as you can see from the Epstein call log, from the Epstein airplane log, we see that it's politicians from the left and the right. We see that it's superstars all the way up from in music and acting and producers and executive producers and people who are not just in Hollywood. Who's the guy who owns Waxman, whatever his name is, in Ohio? He was the one that gave power of attorney to Epstein. Who was that guy? Was his name Waxman? And he owns a huge store. I don't want to misspeak and say the wrong thing. I just want to be factual in my presentation. TPUSA, that's right. I'm going to talk to them this week and see if they want to actually fund the documentary and the lawsuit process. I'm going to do the lawsuits and then I'm going to document that through a documentary. Okay. Would love to do a meetup. If anybody here is great at Discord or they're great at Illustrator. I'm looking for someone to help me redo this poster. I already have the base of the poster done, but I need someone to help me finalize a new poster because there's just so many more cases I want to add to this. Because over the last 2 years, as I've been disseminating new information out to people, every time I disseminate new information, I go and educate myself on that new information. I never stop. Never, never, never. You can't ever stop educating yourself, ever. So if anybody is great at Illustrator, I want to create a better poster. If anybody's great at Illustrator, Lex Wex, that's right. And who was Les Wexner? And what was Lex Wexner? He was a conservative. Lex Wexner was. He voted Republican. And what store or chain did Lex Wexner own? He gave power of attorney to Epstein. And then, oh, by the way, did Bill Gates' wife divorce him over his relationship with Epstein? Yes, she did. Yes, she did. Victoria's Secret owner's Lex Wexner. That's so funny. That's so funny. I mean, it's not funny, of course, but you know what I'm saying. So, okay, cool. Bill of Rights, 1791. Better. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for the support. I do appreciate it. Please don't go political in here. Try to stay off politics, even though we all universally hate mandates, and the person pushing them is currently the president-in-chief. So, okay, cool. Anyways, have any questions? We are at 80 minutes. I'm going to get the hell out of here, guys. I'm going to go have some cobbler. That's my second meal of the day. I've been doing 1 meal a day, so this will be my second meal of the day, the cobbler, and I'm going to get my body back down to shape, back down into... Okay, anyway, I'm just rambling now. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time. You guys don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you don't have any money for the poster or ebook, just hit me up. I'll send it to you for free. Okay. Thanks for your support. I do appreciate it. Dr. Sean Berry. Thank you for your support. I appreciate you, sir. Thank you, M Star. I appreciate you coming by. Thank you, T. Roy, for moderating. Did miss you tonight, Stephanie London. Missed you tonight. Thank you. You're not going to get me to say it, brother. You're not going to get me to say it. I want a third party to rise. I'm not going to support the left or the right. I'm just going to vote against the left in these next couple elections. So thank you, guys. I appreciate it. And God bless you. God bless the United States. And God bless your children as we push forward. Okay. Talk to you guys soon. I'll see you next time. Later.